Come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, like the shape of justice. Roots hold me close. Wind set me free. Life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. I'm Chayla Sloper, your congregational life facilitator. My pronouns are she, her, and I have today's announcements. A warm welcome to those who are joining us on Zoom. It's always good to be reminded that wherever folks are around the globe tuning in, we are connected in our congregational heart. So, a couple things. Today, after service, we have the Young Sounds rehearsal. So notice that it doesn't say choir, and it basically is for all ages, all skill levels. The idea is to get together and make music. And so no experience necessary. Reverend Scott will be joining all those who want to join Young Sounds in the sanctuary at 11:30 today. So looking a little bit ahead, actually, no. There's another kind of urgent announcement, and that is that our homeless outreach folks have been in touch with Stacy Witt, who is really on the front lines of our homeless and houseless population. And what they need right now, they're okay with coats, but they need washable blankets. I mean, the temperatures have been in the teens, right, at night, and it will be changing, but it's still pretty cold. So we need washable blankets, either lightly used or new, thermal underwear, and gloves. So those are the items that are being requested now. They won't have a bin in front, but they'll have a table set up in the gathering hall. So in future weeks, and if you have things to bring by the office, just make sure one of us is here and you can drop things off as well. So we're making a really excited push about the Bend Christmas Parade. How many have ever walked in a parade? Okay, so you know how to do it. So it's pretty simple, and we're gonna have Santa hats, and bless Ann Wyman's heart, who both is taking the lead for our Bend Christmas Parade presents. She also has made some Christmas hats because they're on back order from a place across the Pacific Ocean. And so anyway, we will be gathering. The parade starts at noon on Saturday the 3rd. And the bakers, Larry and Bake Baker, their home is right at the very end of the parade route. This is very convenient, and they are opening their home for our after party after. I'm going to have a specific sign up today. I'll run out there and make it for you, just about the parade. And then if you could sign up for a snack for the after party. If you want to wave at us as we're walking by and then join us for the after party, that's acceptable. It's not preferred. But we will have some song sheets. And so we'll just be singing some carols and some other UU friendly songs and carrying our rainbow flags and banners and things like that. So that's the parade. So I hope you all consider coming. It kind of puts Bend in that small city, small town kind of thing. And it's really a hoot to just walk in the parade, behind our UUFCO banner and like wave and smile at people. We've done it before, so we invite you to do it this year again. And then of course on Deck the Halls, which is the day before, but there are probably more folks who wouldn't mind decorating the trees than walking in a parade. I want you to walk in the parade. Okay. So later this morning, we'll be honoring and welcoming our new members. If there are those of you who are curious about UUFCO and would like to learn more about what it means to become a member, we will have winter classes. You can sign up at the kiosk. There's a sign up that asks if you're interested in the membership classes. Speaking of classes, there won't be any RE next Sunday. So you have the extended Thanksgiving holiday. We do have a drive for a toy drive from ages 5 till, or kind of infants, I think even to young adults. If you can bring a gift, this is for the giving plate, so that there are folks in the community that are feeling a pinch in a different way. And our youth group is sponsoring this toy drive. So there's a beautifully decorated box in the entryway. And so just bring an unwrapped gift, and then the giving plate will be distributing those to folks in our community. They recommend $10 to $40 or so. For Thanksgiving dinner at Bethlehem Inn, there are still 2 openings for mixed vegetables, everybody's favorite, and they need 1 more server to be at the Bethlehem Inn. I think that about does it. So in your heart, you can receive blessings, as I say, goodwill to all.
I was told that I could go now. Good morning, I'm Leora Mock, and I'm your administrator, and my pronouns are she and her. And today I'm helping my friend and yours, Mark Steinberg, tell a little bit about Bottle Drop program here at UUFCO. If you volunteered to bring a recyclable today, I invite you to come to the stairs near the piano. For the past 7 years, Mark has been our point person for the Oregon Bottle Drop program. I cannot imagine how many hours he has spent picking up and transporting bags, or the number of hours he has spent putting our custom UUFCO stickers on those bags. It is a truly remarkable effort. But why? Why does Mark spend part of his retirement with blue plastic bags? He could be hiking, making huevos rancheros, skiing, anything. What is so special about blue plastic bags? Mark, like many of you, is committed to playing an active role for social and environmental justice. And the Bottle Drop program at UUFCO combines the two. Your bottles and cans placed in our blue bags keep trash out of the landfill and benefit our social justice programs here at UUFCO. So and it raises a heck ton of money. Over the past 7 years, Bottle Drop has raised at least $17,000 and counting, all for work right here at this fellowship. I know, you can clap. But some of y'all are not putting the right stuff in the blue plastic bags. So we're gonna do a little educational skit, and I want to be clear, none of these folks are actually guilty of using the blue bags improperly, and maybe they are, and maybe they're gonna find out. So, Mark's gonna weigh in as they put their things in the bags, and we have a blue bin that is for the bottle drop, a blue bin for recyclables, and a gray bin for trash. And the way Mark's gonna weigh in, as I'm told, is by letting you know yes or no, and then we'll find a better bin for your item. So, Shauna, let's see what you got. Looks like a plastic empty water bottle. Empty is really important. Oh, Shauna gets it right, first try. Next is Lainey. And I'm not sure where she's gotten these wine bottles. All right, try to recycle them, babe. Oh. All right, what you got, Randy? A kombucha and a beer. Keeping it nice and level.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, no. I already read it. No, it's not
It's-
worth 10 cents.
Hey, Randy, it's a silent skit. Okay, Noreen has a crumple of aluminum foil. Awesome. That's truly a recyclable. Alice? Oh, I don't know what Alice has. She's got a bag. Prego jar. Oh, and she's going to reuse her bag before she recycles. But the point is, no bags inside the bottle drop bag. All right, Heather, just a beer. All right, another mystery with Lou. Let's see what happens. Still not. Don't put your bags in the bottle drop bag. Yep, keeping on with the recycling. All right, Joe. Surely Joe's gonna get it right. What's... Yeah, even when it's tricky, you gotta do the right thing. Yay! All right, Donald, what you got? Ooh, he's been to Chi recently, lucky duck. Oh, that looks like waste. Maybe Donald has a dog. Let's say he has a dog. And last, Judy, who's just eaten an apple. No, maybe something messier. She wants to recycle that used napkin. Oh, apparently not. She doesn't want to. Oh, she let it go. All right, y'all. That's our time. Thank you for your support of Bottle Drop, and a huge thank you to Mark Steinberg.
And just a note about the cast of characters. Mark Steinberg was president of the board during a year when we were entirely on Zoom. So want to thank him not only for his dramatic intrigue, but also for his service to the congregation. So thank you, Mark.
All right, good morning. Good morning.
Oh, waking you up.
If you're some buzz, want to join us for the $10 agents, come on down. And Sheila already mentioned it, but while they're coming, I want to bring up our toy drive, or item drive, I guess you could call it, that's happening. Our youth is supporting it. So you can bring toys or you can bring other items. I don't remember if you talked about it or not, but these items are going to the giving plate, and they're going to create kind of a store for children in their program to be able to choose things for their families to give as a holiday gift. Things like kitchen items and small tools and things like that that parents might like are also things that could be considered toys for this drive. So just something to think about. Our box is getting pretty full, but we have a couple more weeks that you can bring things to donate, and I'd be really excited to have a super full box to put in. And this morning we're talking about change again.
We have not changed talking about change for the month of November.
So we have two stories this morning to help us explore change. Because sometimes when we change, we start with one story and then more changes. And sometimes when we're exploring change, it takes a little bit of bravery to do that. So I'm wondering if we have any brave people here that are ready to explore change again with two stories. Any brave people here? A couple brave people? Sometimes we kind of need a hype person to help us find our bravery. So I'm wondering if maybe we could be that for each other and kind of hype each other up this morning. So I have some affirmations that we can repeat to help us be brave today as we're listening to our stories. So I'm going to say something and then you're going to say it back. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome sauce. All right, here we go. I am brave.
I am brave.
I am strong.
I am strong.
I am listening.
I am listening.
Oh, I feel a lot braver. Do you feel braver?
I feel
All
braver.
right, I think we have some brave people this morning. And Scott has the first story to share with us.
Story, part 1. Our story begins in England, across the ocean. And once upon a time in England, every town had a church. One church in every town. And they called this church in each town the Church of England. They were not very creative in their naming powers, and yet it was descriptive, so they went with it. And everyone had to belong to that church if they wanted to go to church, like it or not. It's not like how it is here today, where you get to choose where you want to go to church, and there are lots of different churches in Bend or Central Oregon, wherever you might live. You can pretty much pick and choose. No one's going to say where you have to go, and there's lots of options. But even though some folks were required to go to that one church, there was a small group of people who decided they no longer believed in what the Church of England had to say. They tried to form their own church, a church that was not the Church of England, and they got in trouble. So they heard about this land across the ocean, a place called America. And this was a place where they could have their own church. They could do whatever they wanted to inside their church. And so they found a ship called the Mayflower. And they sailed to the new land, and sometimes these people who sailed on the Mayflower are called pilgrims, or settlers, or colonists. So they made a difficult trip across the stormy sea, and they finally came to this new land. And when they landed in this new land, coming from England, they named it New England. Their naming powers had not gotten any better. The trip took much longer than they had hoped, and it was already cold in December in this New England. And they got very cold soon, and they had nothing to eat. Some of them even got sick and died. Fortunately, there were already some people living in this new land. We call them Native Americans or indigenous people. And they were very, very generous to these new people who had come across the ocean, and they shared their food with at least all the people from England who had come to New England so that they would not starve, and they all had a big party and ate together, and it was a blast.
But there's more to the story.
No.
There's actually a whole other story. A different version of the story says that people who arrived from England maybe weren't so nice to the Native Americans or indigenous people. Maybe they weren't so nice to them, even though they shared their food with them. It turns out that the land that they discovered wasn't really new. It belonged to the Wampanoag people. And around this time, Native tribes had kind of formed treaties, kind of like our UU covenants with the English people that had arrived. And they made those so that they could maybe try to live in community together peacefully. But sometimes these treaties or covenant-like things weren't always kept, and so sometimes they had fights. And at some point, we think there might have been a shared meal between the Wampanoag tribe and some of the colonists. But there's also evidence that maybe a Thanksgiving celebration didn't happen until many years later. And if a celebration did happen, it was probably because the English people attacked a tribe and they were celebrating their win. So we know that Thanksgiving became a holiday when President Abraham Lincoln chose a Thursday in November to celebrate the Civil War victory. And one cool thing about that is that some sources say that this push for the holiday might have come after a campaign from a Unitarian woman named Sarah Hale. And today, in our Unitarian faith, we're still working for freedom and safety for all people. And as Unitarian Universalists, we can be thankful that our UU faith guides us in the search for what's true, which means that we get to listen to each other. And it means that we get to love each other and we get to keep working for justice together. We get to keep telling stories and different versions of stories, and we get to keep learning together. I'm wondering if anybody learned anything new from our stories today. Did you learn anything new? What are some things that we could do when we learn new information? Anybody have any ideas? We could share it. If we learn new information, we can tell other people about it. What other things? Yeah, so when we learn information, sometimes we can just sit with it and be like, that's new information, that's cool. Yeah. Any other things that we can do when we learn new information? Yeah.
Think about it, right. Yeah. Not all new information is correct information, is it? No.
Yeah, try to remember it.
Try to remember it.
Yeah. Or try to learn more about it too. The important thing is that we keep learning and we keep listening, and we continue listening even when the information that we're getting is maybe different than the information that we had before, even if we need to sit with it for a while.
Even if it's hard information that we weren't expecting to hear and it pushes us out of our comfort zone, we can just sit with it and let it work on us.
Yeah. And eventually, when we listen and learn long enough, we can start to use that to change our actions. And when we change our actions enough, then sometimes we create really big change. And that's how change happens. That's kind of a fun thing. We're going to keep exploring change as we go to RE today and in this space. But before we do that, we need to say our children's covenant. Can we get some help with that? Okay. In this place, I am kind. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved. Let's go.
As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know your love is with you always. As you go, as you go, as you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
This time I'd like to invite all those folks who this morning became new members of this fellowship to join us up here on the stage. We've been talking about change all November. Change is the part of life. Change is a part of congregational life. These folks chose to make a change in their life by joining us and adding their collective energy to our collective energy here in this fellowship. And one of the most exciting things about that is that this fellowship will forever be changed because they have decided to join us. As they begin to co-mingle their ideas and actions and words and presence with ours, we will be altered, and altered for the better. We are glad you are with us, and we celebrate that this morning.
Here we seek to create a loving community that transforms each of us while we transform the world. We rejoice anytime another person claims UUFCO as their spiritual home and hopes to work with us to build and sustain this community. So earlier this morning, we had a book signing ceremony in Linus Pauling. Each of these new members received some sort of written material that they can read to edify their understanding of Unitarian Universalism and to deepen our common cause. So I invite each of you now to introduce yourself. Just tell us your name and in a word, wink, why you wanted to join UUFCO.
I'm Marcia Huntley, and my word is tolerance.
I'm the other Marcia Vanille, and I joined for spiritual nourishment.
My name is Janice Thompson, and I'll just say community.
I'm Rach Carlson, and I also say community.
My name is Ben Huff, and I will say connection.
My name's Carol Clay, and I'd say connection and community.
My name's Allison Dean, and to be really original, I'm going to say connection and community.
Connection and community. Who also signed the book this morning but weren't able to stay for this part of the service are Tim and Tracy Pfeifner. So we'll welcome them when we have our after we have our winter class. So John.
See how this works. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. Joining the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon means entering into a covenantal relationship, a relationship of mutuality, of giving and receiving. Our mission is that we join together to find meaning, celebrate life, and to serve the spirit of love and justice in our world. Will members of this fellowship rise? As they join us, will you once again renew your own commitment to this congregation as we live into beloved community? Will you always work to create a space of welcome, of exploration, of justice, and of mutual support through the joys and sorrows of life? And will you receive our new members with open arms and hearts, celebrating their now deeper connection with this community? If so, say we will. We will. You may be seated. Welcome members to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon. On behalf of the membership of UUFCO, we extend to you all of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities associated with membership of this congregation. I encourage you to learn about our Unitarian Universalist tradition, our history and promise. You are now a part of this congregation with all of its imperfections and beauty, with all of our human frailty and power and our hope. We joyfully receive you as members among us.
We're going around the table with the social justice theory. It looked like they were DJing back there trying to figure it out. They got it. So I was at a meeting, social justice steering team meeting this past week, and we were just going around talking about what was going on, and our homeless outreach team said that they got that same call that we got earlier from Reach, and that they had been able to collect 800 hand warmers for folks who needed them right now. And Jenny said it kind of in passing, that they got this call and they got 800 hand warmers with their budget. And I thought, hold on, that's pretty cool. That just came from your budget and you're able to respond in that way. And she said, yeah, we have that in there so that we can be responsive like that. And that's the kind of thing that goes into our annual budget. That's the kind of thing that we don't hear or see very often, but is the work of this church. And so we take this morning's offering to continue supporting that kind of thing and all kinds of other things.
We'd like to introduce, we'd like to introduce Jack and Rosalie Chamberlain. They're relatively new to the house band. And when you volunteer for something, we put you in charge. So Jack is, Jack is in charge of this next song.
As we come around to take our places at the table, a moment to remember and reflect upon our wealth. Here's to loving friends and family, here's to being able to gather here together in good company and health. And may we be released from all those feelings that may harm us. May we have the will to give them up and get them gone. If only we are the satchels that we find. May we have the strength to put them down. And may the light of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. And may the light of love be with you every day. May we wish the best for everyone that we encounter. May we swallow pride and may we do away with fear. Leave do not know that we have grown afraid of, and only what we do not choose to hear. And those of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. May the light of love be with you every day. As we dress our daily bread and drink our day's libation, may we be reminded of the lost and wayward souls, the hungry and the homeless that we have in every nation. May we feel your true deep control. May nothing ever come between or threaten to divide us. May we never take for granted all the gifts that we receive. Be never mindful of the instinct that guides us and the miracles that cause us to believe. May the light of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. And may the light of love be with you every day. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. And may the light of love be with you. May the light of love be with you every day.
It's the habit and practice and sacred ritual of this congregation to share our lives with one another, our joys and our sorrows each week. We have these forms that you can fill out, which I read aloud, and you can also light a candle on the sides if there's a joy in your heart that you'd like to just acknowledge. And you can also just sit there with your joy in your heart or your sorrow in your heart, knowing that it is in this room as well and being held by us. So Flora shares a joy, feeling blessed to have a new adventure in our new home with my favorite partner, Chris. Chris, she did not specify that you are her only partner, but at least you are her favorite partner. Yes. Tom Morse, who is not with us this morning because he is attending church today in my old church in San Diego and thinking fondly of my new church in Bend. Cheers to one and all. And here's one from Jonathan, just simply a joy and a sorrow for Cody. And Cody was a memorial service that we held here yesterday for a community member, a young teenager taken far too soon from life. And in this room yesterday, we celebrated that life. And there were tears of joy and there were tears of sorrow. There was laughter and there was community holding that. And so we just honor Cody's life and all the lives that Cody's life touched. There's another sorrow in my heart this morning. And I don't know if you've checked the news this morning. Years ago in 2016, I was in Boston with a bunch of Unitarian Universalist teenagers, and we were running around Boston because there's a lot of Unitarian Universalist church stuff. And that morning we got the news of the Pulse nightclub shooting. And this morning there was another shooting at a queer nightclub in Colorado Springs, where to this point 5 lives were lost. And so our hearts are heavy on this Transgender Day of Remembrance when we seek to celebrate a time and a place where all can be themselves and be safe and be loved and express who they are in this world. We also grieve, knowing that we are not there yet, that this is difficult. And yet we will continue to hope and to support and to love from the bottom of our hearts, to create safe spaces where people can love who they want to love. They can love themselves in the way that they know they can. And they can be in this world in the way they are called to be. So on this day of transgender remembrance, we think to all those who have lost their lives over the years, out of hatred, out of misunderstanding. We hope for a time in the future we dedicate ourselves to being a part of making that time where people can love freely. And so we turn our hearts into a spirit of prayer and meditation. These adapted words, my colleague Maureen Kellerman. Holy are these places of memory, these places that have formed us. We gather the threads and the pieces of what we would become. And holy are the places of dreaming, of being, the places over the rainbow, wrapped in the rainbow, and lived through it, where all children are wanted, and all people are fed, where colors are the source of celebration, and youth and age and wisdom and learning come to the table all as one. Holy are the places of change and pain, the places of our struggle and growth, where the rivers of our lives run fast and uncertain. Can we hold on? Can we let go? And holy are these places of connection,
These places where we risk ourselves, where hands touch hands, souls touch souls, minds touch minds, lives touch lives. And in this awareness and stillness and this holiness we create, we might change our own lives and the world around us.
This is a song called Crowded Table by the Highwomen, and just want to recognize one of the lines is that let's take on the world while we're young and able, and we recognize that both youth and ability are found on a spectrum, and that as a community in covenant together, we're committed to nurturing both youth and ability.
And encourage you to do what you can, because everybody can.
Deep words. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be your mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be your street light, showing you the way home. If you can hold my hand when you need to let go. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds, plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, well, it's love that we reap. If you want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Yeah, I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on the wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Yeah, everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done.
Our worship team here at the fellowship is nothing if not responsive and listening and always trying to have our finger on the pulse of what it is the congregation would like to hear. And recently it became very clear from your voice that what you absolutely wanted to hear about was bylaws.
Oh, hey, Scott.
This is Dirk, also a musician. And in addition to that, he is one of our co-leaders of the worship team.
It was no bylaws.
It was not bylaws.
It was
not
no
bylaws.
Sorry about that.
Well,
Scott. Hope that's not a problem.
this sermon might not land very well then. But it's what I've got here, so it's what I'm going to preach. There are lots of kinds of sermons. There's justice sermons and pastoral sermons and sermons about congregational life and spiritually based sermons. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, there's a sermon on policies and bylaws and foundational documents. And that's where you found yourself today. And so I apologize if this is your first Sunday here. Unless, of course, you are really into bylaws. And then you're in the exact right place. It might be that you believe that God, himself, herself, or itself has delivered you right here because of that. And you would find yourself in a place where people might agree with that, or they might not believe in God, or they might believe in a God that doesn't believe in delivering people to a place. And they might be agnostic about the whole affair. And that's where we find ourselves, you see, because we are a diverse theological lot, and sometimes we need some clarity on that. Because if you identify as a Unitarian Universalist, you might have been asked at some point in your life, a very innocent question it would seem, well, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? And at that point, if you are like me or most of us, you probably get this slight shot of nervousness, some confusion and dizziness as you begin to try and say something that makes sense, because it's kind of a trick question. What do Unitarian Universalists believe? And what do you believe? In most traditions, those things might go together in a very simple fashion, but that is not how we do it here. If someone asked you what Unitarian Universalists believe, you might respond by saying, well, we believe many different things. And some of us believe the same things, though, but not in the same way as a creed. We're covenantal. And we have common values, though some of those are stronger in some people than other. And we do have divergent views on all kinds of things, though, even God and or not God, and the afterlife, and what love looks like in the world, or what evil looks like in the world, or if we use the concept of evil and ideas of salvation, or if we even like that word or not. And some of us like the word worship, and some of us makes us cringe when we say the word worship. But we get together on Sundays, and we have Sunday service, which some people call worship. And what do you do there? Well, we do lots of things there. And you might find yourself
during this rambling, bumbling speech, citing the fact that the 7 principles exist. The 7 principles are something that we use internally as a covenant and a statement of shared belief amongst us. And if you were to say to someone, thinking that you've figured it out, you found something that you can point to that they might be able to understand, you might say, well, we have the 7 principles. To which they might say, well, what are those? To which you might start to have that feeling again of nervousness and anxiety. And then you remember, we also have 6 sources too. And they ask what those are, and you can't do that either. The fact is, this is how it often goes. I'm curious. We do have 7 principles. Currently in Unitarian Universalism, they are the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. And so, if you could just memorize those, you'd have no problem explaining to someone a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism. But the fact is, you'd still have to say, but they're not a creed. Like, you don't have to believe those. It's not like a test. It's not a creed. It's a covenant. It's a way we want to behave. And in truth, I get confused too when I'm describing it, because it's unwieldy and it's difficult. And we do look to things like the 7 principles to guide us. And that's why sometimes bylaws can be important. The principles exist as a section of the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws. More specifically, they are Article 2, Section C, 2.1. So this document that you thought was so like theologically grounded and so like spiritually rich and thick and juicy, you didn't know that it had Section C 2.1 before it, did you? But it does. These are put into the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And so I'm just curious, I'm not going to ask you to, but can anyone here actually recite all of them? Not a single person. I did not raise my hand either. Does anyone know what our sources are? I won't ask you to raise your hand, but my guess is some of you didn't know we had 6 sources, right? All right. So I remember when I was going to seminary, I remember I was going in for my interview. I went to a school called Meadville Lombard in Chicago. And I remember I was nervous. I was pacing out front on the sidewalk, and I had this list of the 7 principles in front of me, and I was rapidly memorizing them because I was scared they were going to ask me one of them and ask me to recite it, like pick one at random. So I thought I had to be ready. And I did. I went into that interview and I had all 7 of them memorized. I was going to get it. And of course, they did not ask me any of the 7 principles. And I told the chaplain and my mentor later about this experience, and she just laughed and laughed and laughed. She said, none of us know the principles. Huh. Isn't that interesting? So these principles were written in 1985 by a commission, a similar commission that we'll talk about in a second, and they were put into our bylaws, this current version that we know and many of us love and have gathered around for many, many years. And when I say that we are a liberal, ongoing, changing religion, we do that very much on purpose. So these are supposed to be revisited every 15 years just to make sure that they are speaking to our values and that they don't need to be revised. And in fact, in 1985, after they were written in 2009, we did revisit them. And there were some tweaks that people wanted to make. The word reverence instead of respect, and some tweaks here and there. And it went to the General Assembly, which is our national body, for a vote, because we do things democratically here and everywhere in Unitarian Universalism. And it lost. People said, no, we like them how they are. Don't change them. We already have a plaque in the fellowship hall. We don't want to change it. Just keep them how they are. So So they've been exactly the same since 1985. And time passes, and we're called to look at them again. And so I was at General Assembly up in Portland this summer, and I was in the main hall, and I knew they were having this conversation. A new commission had been formed to look at the principles and to evaluate them and to see where we stand. And I remember sitting in that hall, and Reverend Cheryl Walker, who is one of the co-chairs of this 6-person commission, to begin a process of looking at them, said these words. I was half paying attention, to be honest. And she said, "Our work is not about editing. This commission is undertaking a comprehensive review, and nothing is sacred." What'd she say? She's talking about the principles, right? And in fact, that's how they were invited to consider the principles. To not begin with them, but to begin outside of them with a different structure to see if that might serve us better. And the process continues. A big, involved, inclusive process from our congregations where we gather information about what our principles mean and what our values are and what shape that takes. It was started in 2020, and this panel has been going back out to the congregations and to small groups of leaders around the country to figure out what these inspirations are and how or if we should adapt our principles. It is set to continue having input, and we'll send you something in your ACE this week after we talk about the new ideas in a little bit, where you can offer your own input as well. But the end point is, at General Assembly in Pittsburgh in 2024, these will be up for a vote. Does all this sound somewhat like sacrilege? Our principles, they might take them away, they might change them. Because I know the reality is, and I've heard from many people, that a lot of folks weren't sure, were on the fence, and then they read the principles and said, oh, wait, I'm down with that. And there's nothing else hiding, or any other theological statements of belief that I have to be on board with. Maybe I can do this. Maybe this Unitarian Universalism thing is a little bit different. And darn it, just when we put the 7 principles up on our new bulletin board in the hallway, we might have to change them. But there is nothing new about this for us Unitarian Universalists and those of us who are part of a liberal religious faith who is dedicated to being self-reflective and changing over time. Unitarian Universalists, Unitarians and Universalists have long been a people of diverse beliefs because the heart of both of those liberal religious Christian faiths was that the church would not be the authority in a person's private spiritual life. That authority always rested in the heart and soul and conscience of the individual. And so that led to lots of different ways of believing and being. And because of that, the Unitarians and Universalists were always trying to find, well, what can we say that we believe together? And so the Universalists in 1790 came up with the rule of faith in the Philadelphia Convention, and it was very Christian in those days. The Universalists were still staunchly Christian, and their statement of belief was around the scriptures, old and new, containing the revelations of a perfect God, about one God who is infinite, about one mediator who is Jesus Christ, about the belief in the Holy Ghost, to make known to sinners the truth of salvation, and the obligation of moral law as the rule of life. So that sounds very different than these and how we consider ourselves Unitarian Universalists today. But that's who they were then. And that's where they found themselves after this gathered conversation of answering the question, who are we? And the Unitarians were a little slower to gather and to organize, and they started the American Unitarian Association in 1825. And they were organized under the idea of to diffuse the knowledge and promote the interests of pure Christianity which Jesus taught as love to God and love to man. In 1885, James Freeman Clark came up with this just barn burner. It was hot for a while on the circuit. The fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, the leadership of Jesus, salvation by character, and the progress of mankind onward and upward forever. Things have changed since then. No one tapped James on the shoulder and said, "That's a lot of patriarchal language you're using there, buddy." A lot. And then throughout history, there's a greatest hits, which we'll send also in your ACE. I'm not going to read them to you, but I find them fascinating, this movement of our shared theological beliefs over time. Greatest hits, I'm sure you know them, like the Winchester Profession, the Universalist Bond Fellowship of 1935, and my personal favorite, and perfectly titled, Things Commonly Believed Among Us Today, by William Channing Garrett. So this kept on and on and on until the Unitarians and the Universalists realized they were doing pretty much the same theological work and decided to merge in 1961. And then they created the original 6 principles, which were somewhat similar to these. If you want to read them, we'll send them out as well. And they existed until 1985, when we added the 7th principle around respect for the interdependent web of existence, of which we are all a part, and reworked a bunch of stuff and made it more of an expression of who the Unitarian Universalists were in 1985. So while most other faiths are built around some immutable claim of all time, for all time, or some holy book with some absolute truth, our approach has long been to gather together and kind of poke around and invite and to listen and to look around the world, to test claims with reason and experience and assess where that puts us theologically and in relationship with one another and with the world. So we are in this living tradition. We call this a living tradition because we want it to always be changing. And generation after generation, we find reformers doing just that. Reformers making people rather uncomfortable when they talk about changing things. So this new version, Article 2, is just a draft at this point, a new version of what it is that we believe at this point in time. And it's interesting, the reactions that people have found over time, since this process started. Some people say, yeah, that sounds great. Let's change, some fresh air. And some people clutch tightly to the idea of their precious principles because they are precious in their life and experience to them. Both are very reasonable responses. And as I said, the commission was intentionally invited to not start with the 7 principles and do some revision. I wonder if they're thinking back to 2009 when some light revisions were offered and flatly rejected. And lastly, the commission, and I see some people already reading. We passed out some. Will someone hold one up? If you didn't get one, that can be on the way out. We'll make some more. And if you've already started reading, you've missed these instructions. I'll read them anyway. They're asking people to read these first with their hearts, and then read them again with your curious mind and your brain. And third, that's when you could jump in and start critiquing and giving all your ideas and opinions about them. So could I get that last slide? Well, first I'll say, this becomes all the more complicated because we were already talking about revising the principles and adding an 8th principle around oppression and justice and dismantling systems of oppression. So while this conversation is happening over here, this commission and article says, you know what? We might be really doing the whole thing, but it's still got to go to a vote, so we don't know if it'll happen. So we have an 8th principle study group here, which is looking at this idea and how it relates to our congregation. And we'll be continuing that conversation and figuring out how this work of the commission on the principles affects the work of our 8th principle work. All right, are you ready? Well, you already have it, never mind. I thought we were gonna pass those out after service, but you already have them, many of you. Could I get that last slide that has the bubble on it? So I'm not gonna read through all of these, they're on the back. But the idea that they came to was that the core was the idea of love, and that all these other ideas surround it in no particular order in relationship. And so the grounding statement in section C 2.2, values and covenant, which would be the revised version. Oh, that sounded way too wonky for a sermon, but we'll continue. Love is the enduring force that holds us together. As Unitarian Universalists and religious community, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist each other in engaging our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom and reason, hope and courage, building on the foundation of love. How's that sit with you? At this point, I would say, just let it sit with you. Like we were talking in our Time for All Ages this morning, sometimes that's a good thing to do with new information. Just sit with it. In his poem, That Is the Way, that's not the name of his poem. In William Stafford's poem, The Way It Is, he writes, there is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you can do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. So as we find ourselves traveling forward, we don't know what this process will become. But we do know we are a living tradition, a changing faith. We have threads here and in our religious tradition. We can feel them in our grip, and that is what we hold on to throughout all. Language changes, ideas change, as they should. But our core ideas in this tradition, traced back as far as you can look, are grounded in ideas of love and inclusion and freedom and justice. And those are the ideas that will continue to call us to this faith. And so this conversation will continue, and that's how we want it. There are other models of theological formation, ones that are disseminated down, that are offered and then accepted. But this is how we choose to do it, in a beautiful, chaotic, and messy way. It is the time of year of eating and gathering for meals at this Thanksgiving. And so, in our faith, we're not interested in a cafeteria-style method to our theology, where we would show up with our plate and receive it and head back to the table. We want, for our model of theology, a crowded table, a boisterous table, one that's loving and listening, one that's confused and chaotic, one that's in relationship, where we all sit around, where everyone doesn't always agree, but we agree to love and to move forward, where we take turns in the kitchen cooking, and sometimes we sit to be served. For us, we want to sit around a crowded table to do our deep work of theology and expressing who it is we are and what values we hold most dear and how we will share them with the world and relate to them ourselves. That is how our theology takes shape. It takes shape together. Not always easy, certainly not timely, but together. around that crowded table. We do this work together. And thank goodness it is a crowded table. May it become more crowded over the years and time to come, as more hear its call, its unwavering call towards love. Amen.
You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be your mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be your street light showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, well, it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Yeah, I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. Door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done.
While you're standing, would you be so kind, if you are so inclined, to say together the covenant of this fellowship, the promise of relationship that we hope to live out with one another. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and help one another. I realize that I have kept everyone here longer than we usually do on a Sunday where we were talking about bylaws and principles. My apologies. And yet, it was beautiful to be together this morning. And so we will just say, go in peace, enjoy this day, and go with our